Thank you to everybody that's tuning into another CSE listed issuer update. I'm Anil Mall, representing the Canadian Securities Exchange, and I'm here today with Jeff Wilson. Jeff is the CEO of Eureka Lithium Corp. Of course, trades on the CSE under the symbol ERKA. Jeff, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you're doing well.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Jeff, before we jump into Eureka Lithium and where this company is in the landscape as a whole, why don't we start off by talking about the industry? What's driving all the growth in this space, and why should investors be paying attention?
Yeah, no, there's no question that lithium has become an incredibly sought after and coveted commodity over the last several years. Obviously, with the growth and the infrastructure needs for clean energy. Obviously EVs and various other uses for the commodity. And so we've seen a real resurgence in the lithium space over the last, call it 18 to 24 months. We really don't think that demand is being satisfied yet with what's being identified and explored, and the timelines to extraction and providing that supply are still quite long. So we see quite a long runway still for the lithium demand. And I think, quintessential to that in the sort of the global world that we're living in now, where, trade relations are so sensitive, obviously identifying these commodities in sound jurisdictions and even within our own sort of borders is, I think, going to become critical. And so we've really focused our efforts on identifying lithium opportunities within Canada, specifically within the province of Quebec.
Quebec is a great province. Mining is obviously encouraged in that space. What are some of the reasons why you and your team are so bullish on the region of Quebec?
Yeah, I mean, Quebec obviously provides its own profits with respect to some tax benefits that explorers are given in the form of sort of funds back or reimbursements, which is wonderful in the exploration business to be able to sort of re-access capital after it's been deployed. But also specifically where we are in the northern region of Quebec, in a part of the country, the province called Nunavik. This is a highly mineralized, known for its base metal affinities region that has been largely overlooked, certainly in the lithium space, where there's been a lot of activity in southern or southwestern Quebec in and around the James Bay region, where the likes of PMET have been very successful and active. There's not as much activity in the northern region, and it was through some of the analytics and due diligence that our technical team went through in identifying where we wanted to target asset acquisitions for lithium potential, that we identified, quite an extensive database of known lithium values in this region, along with some of the right geological and structural components that we think make this a very highly prospective area. But it's an area that has a long history of mining, specifically in the nickel space, and we think this is an area where if you find it, you can exploit it and extract it.
I've read that you and your team have quite a large land package up in the northern third of Quebec. Talk to us a little bit about your project in Quebec.
Yeah, so the properties came about through an assessment and work done by Sean Ryan, who's a very well-known and renowned gold prospector, had been very successful in the Yukon and in Newfoundland with his gold prospect targeting. We've teamed up with Sean, and Sean is sort of the brainchild, if you will, of these projects that we brought in. And it was through his evaluation of known data that was available in the Quebec government database, where the government had done a very extensive province-wide survey of lake sediment sampling. And Sean was able to go through that data set, identify some of the more concentrated clusters of known lithium values, high-grade lithium values, target those areas in tandem with the geology and geophysics and structural control. Pick up a significant land package of multiple projects where these known lithium values were in the 99th percentile of any sampling done anywhere in the province. So we've got known lithium values in large clusters, large land package, in areas that have been relatively underexplored, if not unexplored altogether. The region is quite active. There is an ongoing nickel operation. There's access to a deep sea port. But one of the other areas or aspects that makes it quite interesting to us is there's a private company called Cobalt Metals, which is active in the area as well. And what's interesting about cobalt is cobalt has raised $195 million US recently, privately, and that has been backed by the likes of Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, all looking for these critical battery and clean energy metals that we all need. So we know that there's a lot of money being spent in this area. There's a lot of work going on by others in this area. And we think this is a potential new frontier for battery metal and lithium discovery.
What would you say, Jeff, makes you and your team stand out from some of your peers that might be in this space?
Yeah, I mean, I think as I touched on earlier, one of the things that we find is compelling and a differentiating factor about our story at Eureka Lithium is that we didn't just sort of follow the herd and pile on into an area that's already, sort of busy with other activity. So let's say in the James Bay region, for example. Certainly there's a lot of potential there, and we think there's going to be a lot of success out of that area. But, to start early stage exploration, it's critical that you have a significantly large land package so that you can vector towards, the sweet spots, if you will, over time. And so, the ability to identify an area that was overlooked, underappreciated, but had all the right affinities for potential lithium discovery, I think is one thing that sets us apart. And again, I think that the technical expertise of Sean Ryan and his track record and history for discovery, I think also is paramount. And on top of that, we've also engaged a contract exploration crew that has worked with Sean Ryan in the past, a group called Ground Truth Exploration. And so, again, it's important, first of all, to pick up the right properties, but you also want to explore them systematically and diligently. And I think to have the right technical team, we've got a 15-person crew out in the field right now, mapping, sampling, prospecting over our entire land package. We think this is going to be the start of a fairly significant amount of news flow and data generation through the balance of the summer.
You and your team have had a very strong first half of 2023. You completed a program just a little while ago, and your team is looking at completing or starting another program in the coming months. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you're looking at doing on the property?
Yeah, I mean, this is a project. This northern part of Quebec is a little different from the southwestern part, which is a little more swampy and marshy. Up north, we've got quite good rock exposure, relatively dry sort of tundra type environment. So it makes prospecting and sampling much more efficient. There's a lot of rock exposure, and we're seeing a lot of the right rock types sort of sticking out of the ground. So our program at this point is to, as I said, is to traverse over these entire large land packages, mapping, sampling, prospecting, identifying the areas, going into the areas where we know there's known clusters of elevated lithium through the government surveying, historical surveying, but also to be able to try to delineate or more detailed delineation of where we think the vectoring towards the best stuff is situated. And so we've been sampling, mapping. We'll be sending a significant number of samples to the lab and are doing that as we progress for analysis. And the hope here is that we take these large land packages, identify the areas within these that we think are the most prospective, and we prioritize those zones with the view towards advancing to a first phase of drilling later this summer. And that, I think, is something that's critical. I think it's something that the market is going to get keen on. Anytime you're talking about drilling in an untested new environment, the potential for discovery typically is where investors want to be.
Jeff, well said. And now I want to talk a little bit about your background. How did you get into this space?
Yeah, so I've been in the mining sector for more than 25 years now. Primarily working in the junior exploration space, focused on discovery. My background is largely capital markets and marketing in the sector, but I've aligned myself all the way along with what I believe to be smart, accomplished geological people and geological teams. I think the real key to this business is having the goods right on the ground, and good projects will always sort of drive the day. And so, my background has been to align with good technical geological teams, combine that with access to capital and ensuring that the story is being told and understood to the market so that investors are aware of any advancement that the company makes along the way. And so we've been successful early on here with Eureka, where we have completed a $6.7 million financing back in June of this year. We secured the assets 100% in closing that transaction, so we don't have any underlying obligations or payment obligations to the vendors. And we're now positioned with 100% ownership of the projects, a significant treasury, and we're at that time of year where we're most active with boots on the ground.
So lots of, obviously you mentioned this earlier, lots of news flow in the coming months. Where can our viewers go to read more, not only on your projects, but also read more about Sean Ryan, yourself, and your team, and of course, sign up for press releases so they can keep up with their due diligence?
Yeah, well, our website is a good source for that, and that's eurekalithiumcorp.com. And there you will see all the news releases, quite extensive data and some video information as well, both from Sean and myself, talking about the projects, talking about the work that will be done, and how we've delineated these specific targets out of a relatively large region within northern Quebec. And these targets, we believe, being the most prospective and having the greatest potential for eventual discovery. So eurekalithiumcorp.com is where all that information can be found.
Perfect. So everybody watching, you've been listening to Jeff Wilson. Jeff is the CEO of Eureka Lithium Corp on the CSE under the symbol ERKA. Jeff, I wish you and your team nothing but success as you move forward for the rest of the year. And we look forward to hosting you on towards the end of the year, where we can provide another recap as well as an update to our viewers.
Very good. Thanks, Anil. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Hey, thanks once again. And to everybody watching, thank you for your time. Cheers.